important that we read and interpret their body language so we can keep them under threshold. Your dog's threshold is their representation of how they're handling stress. Now, I want you to think of your dog as a pot of water on the stove. So in the morning, your dog wakes up. It's the equivalent of you taking that saucepan, putting some tap water on the stove and turning on the heat. You can put your hand in that water. It is not hot yet. Your dog is not stressed yet. They just woke up, unless they had a stressful night. That can happen. You leash your dog up. You take them for a walk in the neighborhood. Maybe it's bike week and motorcycles are happening, but they're not right next to your dog. Your dog might hear those noises and be handling it, but at that time, their stress is going up. So the temperature in that water is rising. Maybe there's just a couple bubbles on the bottom of that pan. Again, it's still safe to put your hand in there. It is not simmering yet. You continue to go on your walk. Your neighbor is residing their house and they're wearing a weird belt with a lot of tools on it. And that makes your dog jump a little bit and maybe they let out a bark, but with your treats, you're able to collect your dog and continue your walk fine. That is still stress. Your dog's temperature is figuratively rising. Now there's a little bit of steam coming off of their water. You continue to walk. They're doing really well. You turn around, you're heading home, and suddenly just maybe a block away is your neighbor with their golden retriever on a retractable leash and no treats. You know, you've seen this situation before. It's not going to end well for your dog. Your dog hits the end of their leash, barking, really uncomfortable. Now, at their first sight of that dog, their temperature went up. That water is now boiling. You need a pot holder to get that, to remove that pot of water from the stove. Now, think about it. You're boiling water on the stove. When it boils over, what do? You either turn off the heat or you remove the pot of water. So turning off the heat is the equivalent of that stressor, that golden retriever, leaving the picture. So your neighbor sees you and goes, oh, that's right, Fighter doesn't like other dogs, I'm gonna go the other way. And your dog settles down, right? Their temperature comes back down. But if that dog keeps coming towards you, you need to remove your dog from the situation. You need to take that pot of water off the stove, okay? So whenever possible, we wanna make sure that your dog is under threshold. They are not boiling over because they can continue to think. When your dog is over threshold, they are not thinking. They are merely reacting in a fight or flight mode. Now, if your dog is barking and lunging and feeling uncomfortable, or maybe they're quieter, maybe they're just fearful and reserved, they can't hear you, they can't eat food. We call this going limbic, where they just tap into their primitive brain, into that fight or flight mode to stay safe. And it varies dog to dog and it can vary day to day. My dog can sometimes have a really bad day and a really great week. It just depends on the day, what happened, how your dog is feeling, how you're feeling. And it's important to remember too that stress is cumulative. It adds up over time. So your dog might be really reactive to motorcycles, but motorcycles 50 yards away, maybe that doesn't upset them, but it starts to. And maybe the next person they see, they might freak out at because of the stress that's adding up over time, just like their temperature rising over time. We want to keep them under threshold whenever possible. That means we have to set the environment up so that it's helpful for them to do that.